It began as a faint pulse from the edge of eternity, so weak it almost blended with the background noise of the universe. For decades, Voyager 1 had drifted silently through interstellar space, its instruments aging, its voice fading, its mission nearly forgotten. But then something changed. In its 46th year of flight, the probe did something no one thought possible. It moved. Without any command from Earth, without any detectable external force, Voyager 1 shifted course. And moments later, it began transmitting a sound at a steady, rhythmic hum, deep and mathematical, unlike anything ever recorded before. At first, scientists assumed it was a malfunction, a glitch caused by radiation or decaying hardware. But when NASA's Deep Space Network confirmed that the pattern was real, identical across multiple antennas, the world of astronomy fell silent. This wasn't noise. It was structured, deliberate, and impossibly precise. Within days, NASA admitted to something it had never faced before. Voyager 1 had detected a heartbeat in the void. Now, as experts scramble for explanations, the probe continues to move. Its antenna still locked on Earth, but its orientation shifting toward a region of space that appears completely empty. No stars, no planets, no known objects, just darkness. Yet Voyager is staring straight into it, as if something there has called its name. Whatever it is, it's not random. It's not natural. And if the patterns hidden in Voyager's transmissions mean what some scientists now suspect, then we may have just made contact. For 46 years, Voyager 1 had followed a perfect, predictable trajectory, its path calculated down to fractions of a degree. Every rotation, every course adjustment, every transmission had been carefully managed from Earth through NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. The spacecraft obeyed commands without fail, never deviating from the sequences programmed into its ancient computers. But then, without warning, something impossible happened. Voyager 1 changed direction. No command had been sent. No solar wind, no gravitational tug, no mechanical failure could explain it. The probe, built in the 1970s with the technology of its time, had executed a precise maneuver, reorienting itself toward a seemingly random point in space. When engineers at the Deep Space Network noticed the deviation, they assumed it was an error, perhaps corrupted data or interference from cosmic rays. But after cross-checking multiple receivers across California, Spain, and Australia, the readings were consistent. The change was real. Voyager 1 had moved, and no one on Earth had told it to. At first, the shift was small, barely measurable, but unmistakable. The spacecraft's antenna alignment had adjusted by several degrees, as though responding to a signal no one else could hear. Shortly after, something even stranger began. A new transmission pattern emerged in the data stream. It wasn't random static or telemetry noise. It had structure, a slow repeating rhythm, a kind of electronic heartbeat pulsing from a machine that should have been silent. Inside NASA, confusion quickly turned to concern. After nearly 5 decades, Voyager 1's power was expected to be fading, not producing new behavior. Some suspected the movement was the result of internal system degradation, maybe a stuck thruster or a misfired gyroscope. But when engineers examined the raw telemetry, nothing fit. The thrusters were inactive. The propulsion system was stable. Yet the spacecraft's orientation had clearly changed. Its cameras now pointing toward a region of deep space, with no known stars, planets, or celestial bodies. It wasn't a random drift. It was a decision. Across the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, teams began running simulations, searching for any natural cause. But the data told a different story. The precision of the adjustment, the timing, and the lack of mechanical error all pointed towards something unprecedented. Voyager 1 had performed a deliberate maneuver. For the first time in its history, NASA was faced with a question that no one could answer. Who or what was controlling Voyager 1? When Voyager 1's sudden course change was confirmed, NASA's Deep Space Network immediately began monitoring the probe around the clock. At first, they focused on recovering control, trying to determine why the spacecraft had shifted its orientation without command. But as they analyzed the raw transmission data, they noticed something that made every screen in the control room go still. Amid the faint static that normally accompanies Voyager's 15 billion meter signal, there was a pulse, a rhythmic, repeating beat, steady, symmetrical, and precise. It wasn't telemetry. It wasn't a signal from the spacecraft's internal systems, and it didn't match any known interference pattern. The pulse repeated at mathematically consistent intervals, like a metronome echoing across the interstellar void. The engineers called it the heartbeat. It was subtle, barely perceptible at first, but the longer they listened, the more defined it became. Every few seconds, the same low-frequency vibration rippled through the carrier wave, almost like a distant drum echoing from beyond the edge of the solar system. Initially, NASA assumed it was a malfunction, perhaps the decaying power source creating feedback through the transmitter. But when they checked the redundant sensors, the pattern remained identical. The same pulse at the same frequency, detected simultaneously by 3 of Earth's largest antennas in California, Madrid, and Canberra. It wasn't random. It was real. Even more unsettling, the signal's amplitude was slightly modulated, as if the intensity of each beat was following a mathematical rhythm, one that didn't correspond to any known cosmic phenomenon. There were no solar flares, no pulses, no magnetic disturbances nearby that could account for it. And yet the pattern persisted, perfectly consistent, originating directly from Voyager 1. Inside NASA, tension began to build. This wasn't just another anomaly. This was something deliberate, something transmitting with timing and structure. One scientist compared it to a heartbeat, another to a Morse-like sequence, while others described it as the sound of intention. Whatever it was, it had started after Voyager's mysterious reorientation, and it was growing stronger. For nearly half a century, Voyager had sent humanity data about the cosmos, radiation, plasma waves, magnetic fields. But this was different. This wasn't information about space. It was something in space, something that had reached back through the dark to make itself known. And as the rhythmic pulse continued, calm, steady, unchanging, an unsettling realization spread among the engineers watching the monitors. Voyager 1 was no longer alone. As NASA's investigation deepened, the strange hum from Voyager 1 was no longer dismissed as a glitch. Teams at the Deep Space Network coordinated their antennas across 3 continents, California, Spain, and Australia, to verify the anomaly. If it was interference, the readings would differ. If it was real, every antenna would detect the same pattern. What they found left no room for doubt. The signal was identical everywhere. The same rhythmic pulse, the same frequency spacing, and the same repeating intervals appeared across all receivers, synchronized to the millisecond. It was impossible for an artifact of noise or solar radiation to reproduce with such precision across half the planet. What truly disturbed scientists wasn't just that the pattern was real. It was that it was structured. Deep analysis revealed harmonic layers hidden within the signal, sub-frequencies that interacted in mathematical proportions, ratios of 2.3, 3.5, and 5.8, intervals that mirrored the Fibonacci sequence and natural harmonic relationships found in biological systems, sound waves, and even music. This wasn't random data. It was organized information, encoded in a way that seemed to follow a logic of its own. At first, NASA's engineers tried to explain it through purely physical mechanisms. Could it be electromagnetic resonance caused by Voyager's decaying systems? Could its transmission hardware be oscillating in a harmonic pattern as power levels fluctuated? But those explanations didn't fit. The probe's power output, while fading, was steady. Its onboard system showed no irregularities capable of producing such patterns. The breakthrough came when researchers isolated the signal's frequency harmonics and ran them through spectrographic analysis. What they saw looked eerily familiar. A waveform with mathematical order rising and falling in precise repeating intervals, just like a language. It wasn't transmitting in human terms, but it obeyed rules and syntax, rhythm, and structure. NASA brought in cryptographers and digital pattern analysts. The more they studied it, the more deliberate it seemed. The spacing between each pulse carried ratios too consistent to be chance. And when plotted visually, the waveform formed symmetrical geometries, spirals, lysogyous figures, and repeating fractal shapes, the kind nature and design often share. At this point, the phrase interference was no longer used in official reports. The language had shifted to structured signal event. Inside closed meetings at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, One quiet but unavoidable question began circulating. If this wasn't random, if it wasn't a malfunction, then what was Voyager 1 actually transmitting? And more disturbingly, was it still the one transmitting at all? As NASA's data analysts and cryptographers worked around the clock to decode the mysterious rhythm pulsing from Voyager 1, one comparison began to surface repeatedly, a haunting similarity that no one wanted to acknowledge at first. Within the structured waveforms, the ratios, intervals, and repetition cycles seemed familiar, almost human.